night for cleaning. Stephen Nesson, WNYC News.
WNYC is supported by Plan A Advisors, management consultants for nonprofits and philanthropy, offering strategic and business planning, mergers, good governance, feasibility studies, and capital campaigns. More at planaadvisors.com.
It took a violent mob for some in mainstream media to hear what journalists of color have long been saying about the dangers of white supremacy. Where do we, the media, go from here? We're going to talk about it. Plus, we chat with filmmaker Kemp Powers of Soul and One Night in Miami. I'm Tanzina Vega, and that's next time on The Takeaway, weekday afternoons at 3 on 93.9 FM.
The Marketplace Morning Report is coming up next on WNYC. And then in 10 minutes at 9 o'clock, it's the BBC News Hour on 93.9 FM. Let's check in with London to see what they're working on. Good morning, BBC.
Good morning, WNYC. I'm Razia Iqbal on today's News Hour. Now that President Trump has been impeached by the House with 10 Republicans voting for it, will enough Republicans vote in the Senate to convict? And Ugandans go to the polls today in a general election that pits the veteran President Museveni against the singer-turned-politician Bobi Wine. That's BBC News Hour coming up at 9 on 93.9 FM, WNYC.
Today on All of It, Alison Stewart speaks with director Sam Pollard about his new documentary, MLK FBI, which details the U.S. government's extensive surveillance and harassment of Martin Luther King Jr. That's coming up at noon here on WNYC. 41 degrees now, going up to 47 today. It's going to stay mostly cloudy. Tonight, a low of 37. Tomorrow, back up to a high of 48 degrees, with rain expected to begin tomorrow night into Saturday morning.
The security costs in the wake of last week's attack at the Capitol.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Hint, fruit-infused water in over 25 flavors. No sweeteners, no calories. In stores or delivered from drinkhint.com. Hint, water with a touch of true fruit flavor. And by C3.ai. C3.ai software enables organizations to use artificial intelligence at enterprise scale, solving previously unsolvable business problems. Learn more at C3.ai.
I'm David Brancaccio. The pandemic has really done a number on the budgets of state governments. When fewer are working, we pay less tax, even as demands on state government to spend more on health care, unemployment benefits, and help with food are way up. Now, with less than a week till the presidential inauguration, law enforcement costs could rise. The FBI has warned all 50 states to look out for potentially violent protests. Marketplace's Mitchell Hartman reports.
The continuing threat to state houses across the country means more expenses for state law enforcement and in some cases National Guard, according to Robert McCree at John Jay College of Criminal Justice.
Personnel, obviously first, then technology and physical security and cybersecurity.
He says extending security perimeters around major public buildings, adding more surveillance, those are one-time costs. But the personnel, hundreds of additional armed officers, will cost money as long as the threats and violence last.
State governments are going to bring in not just their Capitol Police, but state troopers, police from the city, many of them compensated with overtime that has to be paid.
There may be a longer-term shift in spending to protect government buildings, public officials, and their families, akin to the security ramp-up after 9/11. Andy Arena formerly investigated right-wing extremists for the FBI and now directs the Detroit Crime Commission.
It's not just a threat to legislatures. It's down to the lowest levels of government, right? If you're not doing what I think is right, I'm going to go to your house, I'm going to harass your family. Local law enforcement, in little rural towns are going to have to be more locked in with sharing of intelligence.
State and local budgets will have to absorb those added costs at a time when they're already strapped for cash due to the pandemic, says political scientist Cal Jilson at Southern Methodist University.
To increase spending to secure state capitals, you're probably going to have to cut somewhere else to come up with that additional money for public safety.
Jilson says that likely means education and social services will take a hit since they account for the bulk of state budgets. I'm Mitchell Hartman for Marketplace.
Let's focus in on the Washington, D.C. region. With a normal inauguration, businesses might expect a boost, but pandemic and now tight security after what happened at the Capitol last week. Airbnb says it'll cancel and block all reservations in the Washington metro area during Inauguration Week. Marketplace's Andy Euler has that.
Tiki T&T is a bar and rum distillery about 3/4 of a mile from the White House. Owner Todd Thrasher's preparation for the inauguration?
Lock the doors. See you later. I'm getting out of town.
He says normally they throw an inauguration party and his bar is busy all week long. This year, he says it's just not worth it.
I'd rather everyone stay home, stay safe, and once this city gets under control again, we'll go back to work.
He says things were already bad because of COVID, but his bar is going to make it. Colleen Hawkinson is the executive director of the DuPont Circle Business Improvement District in the heart of D.C. She says many businesses are taking a wait-and-see approach when it comes to their operating hours next week, or if they'll be open at all.
So there's a certain level of readiness and being prepared to pivot and to react to new situations.
The mayor of Washington, D.C. extended an indoor restaurant dining ban, among other restrictions, through January 22nd, citing public safety and health concerns. I'm Andy Euler for Marketplace.
Checking the markets, the S&P future is up 0.1%. The Dow future up 77 points, 0.3%. The NASDAQ future down 3 points. And there's been a spike in people signing up for unemployment benefits after fresh layoffs. 965,000 new claims in the last week. That is much higher than expected.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by UKG. Two HR technology companies have joined forces to become UKG Ultimate Kronos Group, offering HR solutions to connect the modern workforce. Learn more at ukg.com. Our purpose is people. And by Fidelity Wealth Management, providing perspective on a client's entire financial picture. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. And by GEP, helping transform supply chains with strategy, services, and software, including GEP Smart and GEP Next, AI-based digital procurement and supply chain platforms.
Federal workers and military service members are seeing smaller paychecks this month. They're paying more in Social Security taxes to repay a tax deferral they were forced to take last fall as part of a Trump stimulus. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer joins us now. Nancy, why are they having to catch up on these tax payments now?
Well, this was part of President Trump's temporary payroll tax break. Very few private companies participated, but most federal workers were forced to. They did get fatter paychecks last fall. Social Security payroll taxes were not taken out from September through December. President Trump characterized this as a tax cut, but the money has to be paid back because only Congress can cut taxes. Trump had pushed lawmakers to make the payroll tax deferral permanent, but they didn't.
Were these workers able to prepare for what are now smaller paychecks in the winter here?
Not necessarily. Janet Holtzblack at the Urban Brookings Tax Policy Center told us this is an unpleasant surprise for many workers.
If they knew what was happening, then perhaps they would have reduced some of their spending. But I think for many people, this is coming as a shock to the system. They're getting the bill now just at the same time as they're getting all the other bills from the Christmas holidays.
Nancy, how long will federal workers have to work this off and catch up with the tax they owe?
Initially, they would have only had 4 months, David, but Congress did change that to a year.
Nancy, thank you. Dateline Parma, Italy. The news from the European Union's Food Safety Agency. Worms are A-OK to eat. Scientists look into yellow mealworms, and they're fine, either powdered as a protein additive or the whole dried worm as a handy snack. What's with the face? Do you not eat gummy worms all the time? I assume these are the same, only less sweet and more savory. I'm David Brancaccio, Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
WNYC supporters include